Sidechain is an effect that you have on one sound that is triggered by the volume of another sound. First, we need to understand compression a little bit. So we've got Alchemy and a compressor plugged in on this channel strip, which means that when Alchemy plays, the sound that comes out of Alchemy goes into the compressor. The compressor can then be adjusted by the threshold and ratio to determine how much of that Alchemy level is going to be reduced. When we apply sidechain compression, the channel strip is set up the same, but now we tell the compressor to take its signal from another sound. That means that whenever that sound is playing, the compressor will start looking at that as its volume level, and then depending again on the threshold and the ratio, we can reduce the level of the Alchemy. This in turn would start dropping the volume of the Alchemy every time the kick is playing. If you are looking to fully understand compression and your compressor, then I suggest checking this video out on my channel, or alternatively, you can click the link above now or check the description of this video. And I'll show you a few ways of setting this up. So the first thing I'll do is I'll play what we've got at the moment. Okay, so it's a big pad lead and there's a kick in there as well. So I'm now going to control that channel. So this is the anthemic lead. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to select a compressor. So that compressor is now plugged in on the Alchemy, and if I turn auto gain off, you will see that the compressor and threshold will reduce that level. That's without, and that's with. So that's in theory what a compressor does anyway, and it depends on the level that's going in as to how it reacts. So in this particular case, because it's a pad and it's a really harsh straight pad, it doesn't really do much, it just reduces the level. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to now take that kick and I'm going to let that kick control the level of this lead. So if we go to up here where it says sidechain, we go to audio, because the kick is an audio, we can use instruments of course in there as well, but in this case it's an audio, and I'll select the kick. Then before I press play, I'm going to go to sidechain and I'm going to set my RMS to peak to get maximum effect from what I'm trying to do. And then I'm going to press play. And then as you can hear, it's reducing massively. You can set that more or less, and you can also set how long it takes for the volume to go back. So it's reducing by -20, which is huge, and then it's bringing it back either slow by going up or fast by going to 5 milliseconds. So you can reduce it or you can increase it. So the great thing is, as you can hear it, this is very much a dance thing. So if you're trying to get that real kick driving dance thing, you would apply this to a single instrument or multiple instruments, which I'll show you how to do that in a minute. Okay, so that's how we did that one. Let's have a look at the next example. So in this case, we've got a guitar here. And we have a vocal on top of it.
When I saw you again, I knew I wanted you.
So what you can hear is that this vocal's kind of struggling against this guitar, and it needs a bit more space. So the track we want to drop down is the guitar to leave space for the vocal. We're going to go to compressor, put a compressor in. I'll just move that down so we can see it. And then we go up here to where it says sidechain. We're going to go audio input, and we're going to go to guide vox. Again, we go to sidechain. We make sure that it says peak, and I'm going to turn off the auto gain. Otherwise, it's going to be probably quite loud. So then let's play and see what that does.
When I saw you again, I knew I wanted you, but I had to hide it.
So as you can see, you can drop that guitar. Every time the vocal comes in, it drops off massively. Of course, with a vocal and a keyboard or a guitar or a sound that you don't think works together with the vocal, you've got to be careful as to how much you do it so it doesn't sound too obvious. But if you do it just graduate a little bit, you could do multiple channels as well with this to get a better effect. But that gives space to the vocal without having to turn the vocal up and get a much louder vocal level and then struggle with, well, it's really loud now. And then, you know, so this kind of helps it sit in the track better. So let's try and get the balance better.
When I saw you again, I knew but I had to hide it. I had to hide it.
Of course, the levels and how much you want to do it really depends on what else is in your track. Okay, so I've added another couple of sounds to this. Very rough, don't criticize me for it, but I just put it in really quickly. So let's have a listen to what it sounds like. Okay, so you can clearly hear that those other two sounds are definitely not doing a sidechain because they're sitting really straight. So if you want to do multiple channels, what you can do is if you press your mixer, there's like two ways to do this. The first way would be to go to that alchemy channel that you had on the first one, which is where you applied to put the sidechaining on, and then just press Option and copy the same compression across on both channels. So all three channels have that same setting that I had for that first anthemic lead. Let's have a listen to what that sounds like. By copying the same setting and the same compression across to each channel, you do get something going much quicker, but it's not necessarily as effective as you might need it to be. By having an individual setting, you can adjust each one individually slightly different, which can be really good for certain things because you might not want to reduce it exactly the same. You might say, you know what, that bass, I want that going with my kick, but I want the guitar reduced by the vocal. So if we unhide the vocal and put it in, I don't know if it's going to work together, but it should do. It's in the same key. So now we could say, well, okay, actually this one, I don't want to be triggered by the kick. I want to trigger that by the vocals. Let's see what that sounds like.
When I saw you again, I knew I wanted you, but I had to hide it. I had to hide it, 'cause I have grown strong.
So what this does is it drops just the steel with that vocals in, and that's quite a nice effect. So you can use them in different ways by applying this theory. Alternatively, if you said, well, I want all three of them controlled by one compressor, one sidechain to be exactly the same, because that's the effect I'm going for, then you can either do the copying method as I showed you, or you could do it a different way, which is you could remove all these plugins on all those instruments. So there's now not one compressor on it.
When I saw you again.
So we're back to the normal. And then you could say, well, these three channels, I'm going to put them into a bus. So say bus 1 for now. And then we're going to then put a compressor onto bus 1. Once we've got that compressor on bus 1, we then select whichever channel we want to control that with, which is the kick. We're going to go back in here and set that to peak. And then you have done the same thing by just applying it that way.
When I saw you again, I knew I wanted you.
So that really works. What you can do as an alternative, if you go on to the next level, you could then say, you know what, I still feel that when it comes back, when every time it lifts up, that vocal is still not getting the room that I want it to, because I haven't actually reduced when the vocal is there. So you can say, you know what, I'm going to apply another compressor on top of that, and that's going to control all of that again. So you can then say, right, guide vocal on that. So now those three channels will automatically already be sidechained by the kick. But then now also, whenever it does come back up, if the vocal's singing, I want to drop those rises back down again as well, so that we leave space for that vocal again.
When I saw you again, I knew I wanted you, but I had to hide it.
Reducing that comp bus with the vocal can work, but just be careful not to do that with the bass. The bass should be consistent throughout the track and not drop off when the vocal's coming in. But sidechaining is definitely something you should really think about when you want to get space in your mixes, especially for instance if you had a kick and a snare that just weren't cutting through enough and you keep turning them up, turning them down, and you can never really get that balance. Well, what you could do is just take some of the instruments, put them into a bus and just drop them off on the kick and the snare just slightly, just so that you get a little bit more space. This is a really good trick that can really help you getting a good level on your beats and make them really pop and come out. And that brings me to the end of this video. Please like, subscribe and press the bell for future content. Thank you. Bye-bye.